Hi, welcome to the Mentally Healthy Workplaces Asia podcast. My name is Wen Lee Lim, and I'm the Chief Impact Officer at Flourish DX and host of this podcast. The purpose of this podcast is for conversations and practical guidance from subject matter experts, service providers, innovative tech platforms, and employers in the region. So we really believe in taking a shared responsibility approach to workplace mental health. And so it's not just us as individuals, but as employers, colleagues, and the broader community to help create mentally healthy workplaces so we can all prevent suffering and promote human flourishing. So we're super excited today. We have a special guest, Annie Luu, based here in Singapore, and she's the Global VP of Strategic Partnerships at Fingerprint for Success. Hey, Annie.
Hey, Wen, how are you?
I'm really good. I'm super excited. So just to give context to our listeners, it's Monday morning and this is first thing on both our agendas. So how was your weekend?
I had a really awesome weekend actually. I had a bit of a mini staycation on Friday and Saturday. I went bird watching by myself. And then on Sunday, I dedicate to my 4-year-old daughter. So I'm a single mum. I'm super time poor. So so that was my weekend, and so I'm actually feeling really energized. I'm excited to work on a Monday. I was excited about work this week.
Yeah, oh, that actually is so rare to hear, unfortunately. So actually this morning, I don't know why my body clock is now waking me up at 6:50 a.m. every single day, regardless of what time I sleep, which means I really can't last past like 10:30, 11 o'clock, which actually is the optimum time to sleep. But here in Asia, I find that is like sometimes supper time, right, for most people. So I feel like but then yeah, like I just wake up this morning and I'm like, you know what, I'm actually really excited about work. I mean, knowing that I was going to spend the first kind of hour interviewing you. So I guess like today we're really going to cover things like motivation, just being really motivated at work, and how both our tech platforms that we work at can contribute to this. So tell us a bit about yourself and your professional career to date.
So I first started my first career in civil and environmental engineering. I I worked on construction and large scale development projects, anywhere from 100 million to $1 billion. And then I worked also for the Defence Force for several years, and then I worked as a ESD manager, which is an ecological sustainable development. I was the first ESD manager in Australia, where I managed all of the Victorian government's energy and water and waste reporting and projects. Then I did that for a few years, and I thought, and it's funny because climate change and all this sustainability is all trendy again, but this is back in 2008 where I was looking into carbon trading schemes and energy certificates. So I ran one of the first commercial lighting projects in Victoria. This was around energy certificates. So this is for the sort of carbon trading scheme and putting a price on carbon. So trying to encourage companies to decrease their sort of carbon footprint. And at the back of that, I kind of fell into sales, and I accidentally sold. I had never done sales in my life. I've been a project manager. I worked as a superintendent managing these high scale projects. I accidentally sold $5 million worth of products in a year.
Accidentally.
Accidentally. And it was just my love for data. I was like, what does the data say about marketing? What does the data say about sales? How do we optimize and do more of that? And so, and then I optimized. I was really good at, because I had been running so many construction toolbox meeting. I worked with so many different sort of stakeholders. I was really good at training. So I ended up training 30 salespeople in regional Victoria, and sold $5 million worth of products. So all my friends who had small businesses were like, how on earth did you do that? I've been running my business for several years, getting over the 7-figure is a big deal, and, profitability. And I said, it's really easy. This is how you use data. This is how you make decisions. This is how you learn, evolve, optimize. So I was running like TV commercials in a very remote Victoria in Mildura, where we had our field supervisor, and I had my ex-husband at the time was, the film person, and I had one of my trainees who's Canadian, and so they were all in the screen, and we, created our own ads, created our own posters, and all of our marketing materials. But it was a great experiment to see the from marketing to that conversion process. So then I then accidentally got scouted to go to South Africa, and work at the Branson Centre of Entrepreneurship that's sponsored by Sir Richard Branson. And there, at that point in time, I had just begun my coaching, investing into coaching, becoming a coach, because I was working with so many people and, working with so many high performing teams. I was like, I wonder if I can coach people to, be the best leaders and run their teams and be the best CEOs. And so I went to South Africa and I met this serial entrepreneur who was about to start an incubator accelerator program in Australia, and wanted to be the early incubations, to basically generate successful entrepreneurs. They were successful entrepreneurs who started and exited their business, and wanted to do the same thing. And I said, this is exactly what I wanted to do. And so I got the bug after being in Johannesburg and on safari for 2 weeks. And then I started my own entrepreneurial sort of monthly podcast, actually events myself. Though in those days weren't podcasts, but it was in person.
Yeah.
And because I had friends who were all business owners and entrepreneurs, it was about giving back advice, like, directly from an entrepreneur. So it's not something you read. Here's a live 1 hour Q&A every single month. So I ran that for a few years. And so I've been in the entrepreneurial space now for over a decade, working with early stage entrepreneurs from ideas. And then 18 months ago, I joined Fingerprint for Success. I was a customer and an investor of the tool, and it was just crazy accurate. And so the penny dropped for me, when we had at that time probably invested over 95 companies in our Club 1 and Club 2. I ran an angel investment club in Asia. That's why I came to Singapore. I worked for an early stage global investor called Investable. I ran 22 accelerator programs and like 300 pitch comps in that time. And and that was for me. Actually, it's all about people, all about motivations, and at the different stages, how do you continually optimize on those? Because many of the ones that I thought were going to become unicorns, died at Series C or died at, and I was like, why? They've got all the capital in the world to, and so that's kind of been my career. I was kind of
Yeah.
engineering, sales, coaching, and now, tech startups and coaching, using, like, so FRS is one of the world's first human development coaching platforms in the world, using AI and human coaching.
Cool. Wow. Okay. When you just went through all that, I was like, you are really busy. Um,
You get a sense why I need my staycation.
yeah. No, I think it's
Over the weekend.
amazing. You
Yeah.
you obviously have to prioritize it because you have probably enough work and enough things to do to keep you occupied for like a decade. So I think, yeah, it's amazing that you've actually carved time out. I think both of us, I mean, as you can tell from our accents, we are Aussies, but living here in Singapore. And yeah, and like I mean, I've had a varied career too. So when you talk, I'm like, oh yeah, I started as an accountant, then I did interior design, then I went in, I've done international HR. I
Started the
love that.
platform. Started the platform in
Yeah,
Perth.
started a non-profit back in Perth. But anyway, now we're both here in Singapore. And so in terms of working with founders, I mean, that's where kind of I've spent the last 18 months working in the VC space and, meeting a lot of founders and even attending, demo days and all these things. And you can feel the stress and the pressure that a lot of people are under. But because I guess maybe we can talk a bit around what are your observations on mental health in Asia and in the industry that you work in? And what do you think, the current understanding of mental health in the workplace is, and maybe even popular approaches that you see, especially I think in the last kind of 18 months, 2 years around mental health?
Yeah, this is a great question. It's one of the biggest driving factors why I'm in Asia. I just saw this huge opportunity here. When I was running sort of training programs, accelerator programs here, is that in Asia, culturally, there is such a high emphasis on learning, higher education. Um, Learning is a huge part. But however, one of the things that I found in the programs, because we're very methodology based, people could learn the step by step sort of process. But part of our process in our programs was, in that process you had to fail and you had to learn and you had to evolve, and that seemed to be the process that everyone was most uncomfortable. And then when I started to work with, I had a lot of interns that I was running some of my human development experiments on. Just even the conversation about failing or not having everything right, or just the idea that you're not feeling good, or like it was almost zero, zero tolerance around, like we just never go there. You just never have a
Mm.
conversation. And I would have these conversations with interns. I was like, why didn't you share that with me? Why did you share that you were scared to do that task? Because it was the first time. I'm like, that's a natural thing to be scared about. And I was like, what's scary about that? And it was like, well, it's just something we would never, you know, we've never had the conversation in all of our schooling at home. We never have this conversation. And
Mm.
so I think generationally, even culturally with my parents, like
Yeah.
we never, there's, how was school, there's not a lot of you sharing your emotions. How are you feeling? Like it's just, how did you do? Did you do good? Did you do bad?
It's facts.
And then it's
Actual.
very, yes, like, and then it's very direct. Okay, that's great, or you should do better. And so I just feel like in Asia we haven't been trained, one, because we haven't been exposed to having a conversation,
Mm.
sharing how we're feeling, and then sharing the process and steps to, okay, we can go from feeling, really down, feeling really sad. Now we're feeling, okay, I feel a bit better. I've taken time out. And then now I feel like these were the steps that I took to then overcome what I was feeling, whether it's, I'm now gone, like me, gone
Mm.
bird watching to take a bit of, I was feeling quite stressed for the last few weeks. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's time to take time out for myself. So
Mm.
having that whole process, though, I feel like Asia, that is just not the norm. Like to have that conversation, and then let alone to then have a full cycle process of how to go from, this is what I'm feeling, this is the challenge that I am, here are the steps that I can take. And then and so this whole concept of mental well-being is I think it's still quite a foreign concept in
Yeah.
Asia. We're just learning it's okay to talk about it. And I feel like right now what's happening globally is just such an opportune time to talk about it. How are you coping? Are you working from home? Are the kids at home? Oh no, is your partner at home? Oh no, you're both on Zoom calls back to back.
Yeah.
So it's finally giving us, I'm finding in the role and the work that I do, that we have permission to go there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
like a great starting point, going, I'm so stressed. I've got the two kids at home, teenager, and different needs. I've got to be a teacher, I've got to be a parent, and I've got to be a worker at the same time. And so I feel like the whole world, we're going through this
Yeah.
four different stages, and it's just a great time that we now have permission to talk about it versus it's not a taboo going, what do you
Yeah.
mean you're not feeling good? What does that mean? And so yeah, so that's what I'm finding trends in Asia. Like it's just particularly uncomfortable to recognize, or like, what is mental health? Like I actually have a lot of males says, what feelings? But if you ask them, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
They'll they'll be able to answer that question. But when you answer, what are you feeling? I'm like, I'm not feeling anything. I need to get this done. I need to do this.
Yeah.
And so it's just really, really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We were just talking earlier, before we started recording, just about maybe doing a webinar later on, just, talking about the founder space. And, when you talk about like having so many people that you're responsible for, so many different hats, I think definitely in the startup space, you've got your investors, you've got all the different stakeholders, your employees and all that. But yeah, the founding team, people you've just onboarded, there's just so many areas that, yeah, founders and even execs and everyone who's in the leadership position has, and it's tough. And that's okay to say it's tough, and actually be really open about it, because otherwise you think that you're the only one feeling that it's really hard, right? When actually everyone else is. So I think that's the whole thing about having more conversations, and it's creating a safe space. And you're right, like we don't really talk about emotions and feelings in Asian households, no matter where you come from. I find that actually so I'm an ex-Malaysian, so grew up first 9 years in Penang. But all of us who are migrant families to different parts of the world, we all have such similar experiences growing up. We're still Asian. And so when we swap stories, it's like, oh, yeah, no, we know
Totally know
exactly what
that.
that feels.
Yeah.
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 So maybe now let's go and talk about F4S, which is a short form for Fingerprint for Success. What is it? And can you tell us a bit more about it and why it was developed and what does it do?
Yeah, so Fingerprint for Success was founded by one of the world's first pioneer in coaching psychology and human development. So Michelle Duval, she started executive coaching, or what you call life coaching, back in the late 90s in Australia. This is at a time that entire industry did not exist. So if you told someone you're a coach, they're like, oh, which soccer team or football team or rugby team or swimming team? That was only in
Yeah.
the swimming context. And so Michelle not only co-developed one of the most rigorous coaching programs, which is in meta coaching. So it looks at, uh, you know, there's 120 different sort of meta programs. Fingerprint for Success measures 48 of them, so 48 specific to work. So we look at, when you go to work, what is the first thing? Let's just talk about, pretend if you and I were both in the office. It's Monday morning. What's the first thing we do? Do we go to our laptop and look at our calendar and go, oh, how do I start planning for today? I've got the first thing, I've got my podcast. Okay, do I need to, or do the first thing I go to, okay, where are all the emails from Friday? Do I start to reply to all the emails so that's all gone so I can start my day? Or is it the first thing you do is you talk to people in the office going, how was your weekend? You have a coffee. And so, a person who's going to focus on people are going to want to talk to people. Person's very high on structure and planning, are going to want to structure and plan their day. And a person's high and motivated by use, they're going to want to get useful straight away into the emails. And so what Fingerprint for Success measures, it's able to predict basically your cognitive filters, your cognitive behaviors, on what are the first things that you would do. So no one needs to give you a job description. There is no KPIs that you need to focus on people who do these things. You naturally do these things. So just think of any sort of form of engagement or presentation. What's the number one burning question that you have? And that usually gives us some insight. Is it tools, systems? Is it people? Is it money? Is it metrics? And I didn't really completely understand this until I was helping a lot of my startups raise capital for their next round. I said, so interesting. You got 4 early stage investors. One's all asking about the people and their history. What did they do in university? What are the projects? What are the biggest hurdles that they've had? One is all asking about, are you API'd? What's your tech stack? Like all about the tools and the technology. And then one is asking about, all about their go-to-market strategy. And I was like, that's so interesting that they all have such a different, and that's when I realized each person has their own sort of filter, their own interests. And so that's what FRS kind of does. So Michelle has been a very highly, one of the most esteemed coaches in the world. She's built models around developmental coaching and transformational coaching. So she's been able to take founders in the last 22 years from woe to go. So we know, I think, still counting, I don't know the exact numbers, but 33 plus companies to multi-million billion-dollar IPOs.
Yeah.
And so a great example is she's been, been working with Canva since 2017. So we've seen them double in size every year. We've been part of their people strategy and, kind of gone on that journey to the 40 billion, I think just a few months ago.
Yeah.
But it's been really exciting to see when you are
Yeah.
able to optimize how people like to work and what do they like to focus on. You can really just keep leveling up. So
That's really cool. When you first said that, Michelle was one of the very early coaches when it didn't even exist. It's kind of reminded me when you said that you were in carbon trading and all these kind of
yeah,
environmental kind of areas where it kind of wasn't even the thing. And now everyone's talking about it. So you both are very early movers.
Yeah, and I think it's just following your intuition, what you're interested
Mm,
in. I
yeah.
mean, at the time in 2008, when I was sort of that first one of the world's, like Australia's first, like China had already spent 10 years working on their own carbon trading scheme, within the provinces. Like, and it was like, oh my God, how do we replicate what they're doing? And, it seems strange now that was 2008 and now we're like 2021. And you
Yeah.
see how far they've progressed with their, sustainable energy, clean energy, and
Mm,
policies, and that's what's interesting when I was taking top regional startups across Southeast Asia and Australia to China.
mm,
Um, they had been just throwing so much money, like they were giving $1 million RMB grants to any startups in that clean energy space, and so you
yeah.
just there's so far progress around policy, but yeah, we definitely act on our intuition
Yes.
and
Yeah,
and
which is high
yeah.
in initiation, I believe. So just for people listening, I've actually done and I've done my survey. So it's a very quick 15-minute survey that you can do on Fingerprint for Success, their website. And I've been going through the actual training. And I've loved using it because, like, for me, when you just said, oh, yeah, what do you do first thing in the morning when you go to work, right? If we were in a workplace, I'd be the coffee person, be like standing around talking. And
Me
so,
too. How were the
yeah,
kids?
and you,
What did you do?
so, I mean, one of our top mode, and for me, it's people, affiliation, and but also like I think what I've learned about even using F4S is you can hear it, when you say without looking at the survey. So just the fact that you guys, you and Michelle were the first people to do things. It's like initiation. So it's like you're very high, and I'm also. I think we're very similar. But I think what's really good about knowing all of this is actually talking about motivation. So motivation is one of the things that a lot of people are struggling with. So, for example, I find that a lot of people who were traveling for their jobs, 18 months ago, that was a big thing that they loved doing, and it's just been taken away and they can't do it anymore. And, what are the things that motivate us about work, especially people who, let's say, the morning coffee weekend chat person like me and you, suddenly we don't do that. Really, like in person, that all this you have to be very intentional about creating. And so like the thing that always comes to me is when parents and who have teenagers, they're like, oh, my teenager is so unmotivated. And it was like, well, actually, no, everyone's motivated. It's just by different things. So you just need to figure out what that thing is. And so that's why I really love the work of Fingerprint for Success is that you can actually identify what motivates you and drives you at work. And then what actually demotivates you or things that, drains you. Not that we can have the perfect work. There'll always be things, in our jobs that we don't really enjoy. But if we can incorporate more of the traits or, the things that we love about work, can you imagine how that's going to change workplaces? So maybe if you can share like examples of just, how it's been used and like how has it really changed workplaces? And from a mental health angle, I mean, I guess people are motivated, right? So you're just going to have a more mentally healthy workplace.
Yeah, I love that you touched on, teenagers and, what's demotivating them or they're not being able to find what motivates them. And so travel's a great one. Travel's a big one for me as well. I've found it
Mm,
actually Singapore's a different place to live when I'm not here because I, travel all the time
yeah.
across Southeast Asia. And so what's great, and I'll go back to my engineering, the data is that
Mm,
the FRS motivation gives you data across the 48 motivations, the combination of what motivates you or demotivates you. And so once you have that data, it enables you to then manage your emotional, mental, and physical state. So, for example, I'm really high on people, so I'm going to love doing meetings. But I'm really demotivated by anything that's a lot of writing, compliance, reporting. And so that when I know I need to do that particular task, because it takes a lot of energy to do it,
mm,
I have to do it at either the first thing in the day or at the end of the day where I'm not in between meetings,
yep.
where I've turned off all my notifications so there's no other distractions. So you'll be able to then manage your state so that you can optimize on doing things that's going to take a lot more energy and focus.
Mm,
And so when you think about teenagers who and what we've seen, scary, especially with the homeschooling, if they're motivated by group environment, so they get so much energy being in a classroom full of other kids and people and their friends, they're going to be really, really, really impacted with the isolation. So then being able to then
Yeah.
replicate that virtually as best you can.
Yeah.
And then when we look at across the 48, it's not just one or two things, it's a cluster of things, so that they could also be motivated by visual. And so that,
Mm.
I recently did a workshop for a venture team based out of, they're actually across Southeast Asia, but based out of the Philippines. And 90% of this team were motivated by visual communication, but they've never ever had a call because they're trying to save on the data and the refresh times. And so all of their calls were auditory. And so when we did this workshop with them, one of their work colleagues were like, "Oh my God, that's what Wen looks like. I have no idea what you look like." And I was like, "Oh my God, like you guys should always do face to face or video calls, well, as much as you can, because
Mm.
you get a lot of energy from that, seeing the person, seeing
Yeah.
and not just, talking." And so, and that gave them some huge insights as a team going, that's why we're really demotivated because we're in isolation, we're not going into the office, not
Mm.
doing calls on where we get that visual stimulation. So it's pretty
Yeah.
powerful as an individual, as a team, and as a leader. You can then, intervene or put into practice things that are going to increase or do things that you can enjoy, so that um, we know at FRS, many of us are high what we call affective communication. We get a lot of energy from seeing that person's nonverbal cues, that person smiling, eye contact.
Mm.
And so we do a lot of meetings throughout the week so that we get that energy, that dosage, because
Yeah.
many of us get, just every time we have that meeting, go, oh, I feel energized and now I can go a bit longer.
Yeah.
But also we need to, as a team, increase our social, what we call our, not say our social, our solo environment and solo responsibility, that we
Mm.
have to just get better and learn that muscle of
Yes.
we're going to be working by ourselves. So finding ways to enjoy it. And so
Mm.
once you have that awareness, you know what the gap is, then you
Yeah.
can build on it. So that's where the opportunity is to use motivation and use data.
Yeah. And I love that actually it's not really a big thing. Sometimes we think, oh, the change is massive, this is so hard to do. But literally it's just tweaking. And
Yeah.
then you just suddenly like ignite, the kind of the motivation and the positivity of engagement or whatever it is. So when you were talking about shared responsibility and sole responsibility, after I was doing F4S and really understanding this, I was having a conversation with a friend who I can obviously tell is a sole responsibility kind of person. So
Yeah.
she's a lawyer. And so she's like, yeah, she's really good. Once you give her a task, she runs with it, right? And you don't need to kind of check in. But from talking to her, she was kind of like struggling with the fact that her manager
Yeah.
was more of a shared responsibility. So she didn't have the words for it. But the manager, I'm a shared responsibility person as well. We want to check in on our teams to see how's everyone going, on this job, just to keep updated and all that. But that to a sole responsibility person can sound like they are not trusting you or they're micromanaging, but it isn't that. It's actually that's how we just operate and we love to just be in the loop. So after kind of like understanding that, I think that actually causes, I find in Asia, that causes a lot of stress for people, that they feel they're being micromanaged or not being trusted. And so I think even just understanding how people operate, and I also like how you say that, it's about strengthening a muscle. So many times, and even I mean, I'm years on into my career. I'm at a mid-career point. And a lot of young people are, oh, like I want to do something that I'm really good at, which is great, right? But actually, what about all the other weak muscles that you need to develop as a professional or, in your job? So it's not just about focusing on the strengths, right? And it's really about, okay, where are my kind of things that I'm struggling with or that I'm not so good at? And you can develop that muscle. And how have you found in terms of developing muscles and changing even over time? Because I know you've done the F4S for like a couple, every 18 months or something. So how have you changed in terms of developing muscles?
Well, one of the big things, it's in the framing as well. So we never ever say strengths and weaknesses. We never say the word weakness because, and we use it in the context of it's a blind spot. So
Mm,
it's great, that you have this motivation in this context. It could be great for this, but in a different context, like in a leadership context or in a sales context or in a raising capital context, this planning motivation or this procedural motivation may not be great for that context, but for a QA role or psychological safety, following the OH&S standard for that, that's great for that. So it's about framing the contexts, and so we only ever use the word blind spot. So this could be a blind spot in this
mm,
scenario. So as a leader, having this sole responsibility, feeling like you have all the accountability, and then so the awareness is not only deeply understanding yourself and what gives you like happiness and enjoyment at work, but also understanding how is it received by your peers.
mm.
Like that example that you just gave with shared and solo responsibility. On the opposite side, we see a lot of teams, it's like, one of the top 10 sort of issues that we see in companies is that mid-level managers, the difference between a shared responsibility leader and a sole responsibility leader, it feels like, at the very top, we get the complaint of, oh, there's so many silos happening and not a lot of information transparency, there's not a lot of collaboration between the different teams, there's
Mm.
lots of silos, and it's because of that dynamics that play out and share responsibility. People are like, why are you not sharing information with me? Why did you make that decision without me? I just went on leave for 2 days and this has already happened. But a sole
Mm.
responsibility person who's comfortable making decisions on their own and taking that accountability and responsibility would not feel like I didn't, on intentionally, not give you the information, but I was
Yeah.
just comfortable to make this decision. So then you're able to see the dynamics on how it plays out. And so it's having
Mm.
accountability of your own experience, but also that you know how you're being received as well. Because often we think, yeah, I'm a really great leader based on how I feel and my title and what my superiors tell me. But often, actually, you have a high churning team. You never done any sort of 360 feedback. I think I deviated from your question. What was your original question?
It's okay. These things happen.
Where
I
was
think
I
it's
going
just,
with this?
oh
Where
no,
was I
actually,
going with
it was coming back to yourself in terms
this?
of
Okay.
whether how
Oh,
you've
myself,
changed in
how
terms
I've
of,
evolved.
yeah,
Yes.
evolved. Yeah.
So it's funny that you mentioned my high initiation. In fact, my high reflection and patience always been, it's been a combination. So it's been always pretty even. Only when I started working, since I had been in South Africa, that it incrementally increased. My initiation just went higher and higher and higher. I went from
Mm.
58 and then I doubled in my score like 2 or 3 years later. So it's given me insights on how I like to evolve. So I used to come from corporate world, and so I'm used to, there's this stakeholder management process. I have to take it back and then, give the information again, and it's got to, address all the stakeholder concerns or issues to get it to the approval stage. And then, yeah, I kind of went from 58 to now like it was 120. And now I feel like everything is so slow when I work with corporates now. It's like, why does it take so long? We just set up one meeting. Why do we have to meet in 6 weeks? And I'm like, this is so inefficient. But because I had been in that high growth startup for so long,
Yeah.
in that entrepreneurial, go hustle, go get your next
Yeah.
meeting, go raise capital, have this conversation. And so for me personally, I've been able to see myself evolve over
Mm.
time.
Yeah.
But some things I have intentionally built the muscles. So share responsibility was one of them. So I am guilty of that sole responsibility. So as a project manager, the bucks stopped with me. I was
Yeah.
responsible. Like I was signing approvals. Like when I first managed my $100 million project for
Mm.
the Australian Federal Police, I was like, I signed every single progress payment that I was like, okay, we're sending 4 million here. I'm signing off here,
Yeah.
and so I had that mindset for the longest period of time until when I was working with someone in my team and I said, this is so not me. It's saying I'm minuses in share responsibility. I'm like, I've worked in teams all my life. I'm like super high on share responsibility because
So you thought,
that is my perspective of what share responsibility is, like being a team player. And I had a work colleague said to me, no, you just delegate everything. Sure, we come back and we talk about, what's our shared vision and where we're up to in terms of progress, but
mm.
we don't share a task. And I said, yes, that's exactly right. Why would I share a task? That's so, like, your role is to do this, my role is to do this. And then that's when I had, aha, this
The
is my
pin dropped.
bias, pin dropped. And I was like,
Yeah.
you're right, I don't want to share this, like, I don't share tasks. And so that has
Mm,
been, and then I've been now building that. So now, like, I think I went from minuses,
yeah.
to now, like, 85 on share responsibility because
Yeah.
it's, um, really, yeah, like, and that's going to be a key part to be able to work remotely as well.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so,
I
um,
think we are definitely all learning new muscles in terms of working remotely. Oh, sorry. I've
yeah,
got, oh, yeah.
I'm back.
Okay. Um, so I was just gonna like, and this is why I think I'm one of those people who love doing this personality test and all these things, just to understand myself better. Because I think that when you do understand, or actually when you get clarity around, because you thought something, but you're like, oh, actually, like my perception, the gap between perception and reality, it's
Yeah,
sometimes a little bit too big, and we're not actually conscious of it.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, so thank you for sharing about your personal journey, and it's just exciting, and I love that we can evolve, we can change, and I think a lot of times, we're like, oh, it's a lost cause, that person will never change, or I can't change, whether it's I was born this way or I was, brought up this way, but we can adapt and we can learn, especially in different environments. So now we're all learning a different skill set, just working remotely. So I kind of want to touch on just even your safety kind of culture that you came from, from construction. And I mean, construction's a big industry in Asia as well. And then when I first started with Flourish DX, I was like, hey, Annie, check this out. We always do this, like, check this out. And we share a lot of things. And I guess I just wanted to hear your thoughts on in terms of approaching mental health and mental health safety in terms of from the ISO and from a safety perspective, which is a whole different kind of conversation and area to cover. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on it.
yeah. I'll build it off the last question, which is around, building the muscle. So when we say
Mm,
building the muscle, is that it could be not only just a blind spot, things that you just never like to focus on or do. So it
yeah.
can, when you are now trying to build that muscle for that, feel uncomfortable. Like the first time you go to the gym, you're bench pressing or doing
Yeah.
squats, all your muscles hurt a little bit. It's that
Yeah.
soreness, so that's what it is. The first part is just to, get a little bit comfortable with being uncomfortable, which is
Mm-hmm.
part of building the muscle. So let's just get with acknowledging and accepting that this is not what I would normally do,
Yeah.
but I'm going to step into it. And then we want to go from, okay, I'm accepting and acknowledging it's going to be uncomfortable, to actually, it's not that bad. It's
Yeah.
okay. So then we go from being uncomfortable to being okay to then going, actually, I'm starting to enjoy this.
Mm,
And so often I think when we think about strengths or blind spots is that we want to go from here to here. I want to go from this initiation to this level. I want to be at the
yeah.
entrepreneurial level. That's why I want to be an entrepreneur. But
Yeah.
we have to just accept and acknowledge this is where we are right now. And so the same with mental health. Like I've been processing a lot myself. Like I went through a
Mm,
divorce in the last 2 years and just accepting where I am, accepting, I am a single mum. Like I am
mm,
time poor. I am got lots of these passion projects and, I have a personal non-for-profit, fund that I want to launch around, supporting orphans from around the world. So I have all of these, like you mentioned, like lots of these projects, but accepting where you are right now. I'm feeling this. It could be tired, fatigue. I'm over that. I'm not traveling. That is the first part, because
yeah.
if you want to go from here to here, or like, I'm just angry that I cannot have my life before it was 18 months ago. I want to
Yeah.
be in Penang. Actually, I was in Penang just before COVID started. So I'm very grateful that I spent New Year's there just before that. So that's what really the muscle building is.
Mm,
Now, in my 15 years in construction, when I was running, we have, in the construction industry, especially in Australia, really high occupational health and safety standards, which is we
yeah.
have a zero death policy. There
Yeah.
is no reason why an incident or an accident should be happen. It should be,
Mhm.
predicted, prevented, and
Yeah.
those who know health and safety will know the risk matrix, and with the categorize, unlikely, likely, moderate,
Mm.
high risk, red, orange, green. So I'm like, I spent all my years, you know, being, and that's what I kind of feel like is very similar when being at FRS, predicting the level of risks when I was looking at
Mm.
investments in those categories. But my mind has already been in that systemized. Is this a likelihood risk, high risk? What's the probability of this risk, and what is the category of the risk? Is it high,
Yeah.
low, medium? And so what hasn't been completely explored is a lot of it's been around safety, training, equipment. Do I have working at heights? Do I have
Yes.
like credentials that actually I can tick? So there's a lot of check boxes that we go through.
Mm.
But what is still very, very new, and what I find really exciting about Flourish when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, there's finally a psychological safety, mental health checklist. Imagine going into a workplace and being scolded. Oh my God, I hear this experience a lot in Asia where they have managers that it's actually happened to a really good friend of mine, just in front of her other, these are all like leaders in the business, sales
Mm.
leaders in the business, and she was just scolded like in front of her other peers, like going, why would you be so stupid to do that, and language that they used. And I was like, oh my God, that is not only is, when you think about safety, like that's like, it's emotionally traumatic, the specific
Yeah.
words that were used. And now, my friend for the longest time going, I never want a female leader again because
Mm.
female leaders are this, because of this really
Yeah.
traumatic experience. And so I kind of feel like in construction, it was just like in our training, especially
Yeah.
I was at defense as well, and so we take all of those risks. But I think it's still a whole new area, and this is what I'm super excited about. That now employers around the world are going to take note. Actually, what are we doing? What are we doing
Mm.
to help every single person work remotely from home? Are they sick? If we're talking about physical, mental, and emotional state, are they sitting on the right chair? I was on an IKEA chair because we didn't know how long it was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So employers are now needing to navigate a whole new world of this hybrid working from home.
Mm.
Um, there's obviously, questions around, do we mandate or not mandate vaccination, depending on the level of risk when they come into the workplace. I have a friend who owns a physiotherapist practice, and she wants
Mm.
to mandate it because she wants her patients to feel safe when they come in, but
Yeah.
also, in employees also
Yeah.
want their rights around. I don't want to, and so we're in a really, really tricky time to
Mm.
navigate. And so if you're a leader or a manager or a CEO of a company, these are the new sort of workplace, future work policies that
Yeah.
needs to happen now. You need to evaluate, because is your workplace virtual workplace, or what are you doing for workplace well-being? And
Mm.
so what I
Yeah.
like about the Flourish system, it's an end-to-end, like I've been through the platform, and
Yeah.
I'm amazed there's like resources and tools, but is taking that compliance, which I'm used
Mm.
to the next level to help you. Actually, we need to work through this. Actually, we don't
Yes.
have a hybrid work policy. We need this. We need this next thing. We need this next thing.
Yeah.
How do you teach conversations? I mean, I'm still teaching leaders now, like
Mm. Yeah.
having authentic, conversations. And I think
Yeah.
also there's this misconception, and we talk a lot about this at FRS, is what is emotional resilience? What is grit? And I think
Mm.
people think emotional resilience is just endurance. I'm going to
Yeah.
keep going. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to just keep doing this. I'm going to push
Yeah.
through. And emotional resilience is like sucking it up. Like, this is what, my previous,
Mm.
I'll work through the hard work, versus emotional resilience is accepting where you are, working on where you are now, and then processing that, and
Yeah.
then letting it go, moving on, processing where you are, letting go. And so that the load doesn't increase. That's not what emotional resilience is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's making you more emotional resilience. This week, I mean, we at FRS had like 14 direct family members die from COVID.
Mm.
And so it is, being able to tell people when we were doing team meetings, this has
Yeah.
happened this week. My cousin died the other week.
Mm.
Um, and being just really, really real. And so it just opens up and gives everyone the permission to go there as well, versus
Yes.
this, I'm this leader, I need to show I'm doing well in
Yeah.
COVID, therefore everyone else needs to show that they're doing well. Uh,
Yeah.
I need to be holding all of the emotional stress that I have.
Yeah.
And so it's, yeah, this new way of being able to manage yourself as a leader. Like, there's,
Mm,
yeah, we just need a whole refresh on our understanding around mental health in the workplace.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you've just touched on so many parts of it, right? So coming from like an organizational safety culture. And I used to work in a mining company, so totally understand this whole safety thing. Where
Yeah.
actually after a while, right, like you said, just the first steps and then getting used to it and all that. So it then actually it's just automatic. You don't even think about
That's
it.
right.
And imagine like the future world, right, where actually psychological health and safety at work, it's just normal. Like it's not actually, you don't have to think about it and then do
Yeah.
it. It's just part of the culture of the company. Um, and it's continuous process improvement. It's acknowledging, yes, as a company or where we all are at, we're here. And then this is our plan, to keep going forward to then get better and better until it's going to be automatic. It's just going to be innate in us to do this. That to me, it's a really, really exciting world to think about that and to see. And it's just natural. It's just practice. Everything is practice. So it's practice, practice, practice until it's like, oh yeah, I can do it. And it's not even something you have to, write on a piece of paper or have a list,
Just becomes a behavior, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I noticed in OH and safety. Like, no one is
Yeah.
surprised that we roll out, here's the matrix, here's what you sign off, here's the
Yeah.
induction, we watch the video, we
Mm-hmm.
have a discussion, and then it becomes, because it's a every day, every week, you report what,
Yeah.
reporting process, like all of those are just ingrained into us because it's systemized.
Yeah.
We're really spot air for us because we, every meeting we're open with, okay, what's everyone? We do a sort of a rating system, which is how are you feeling from 0 to 10. Rate how you feeling energy wise, well-being
Mm.
wise, and communication wise. And so if your energy level has been 4 out of 10 every single day, you're like
Yeah.
highly unlikely gonna, impact your well-being, also impact their communication. So I
Mm.
know for me, and everybody in my team knows, when I'm really tired,
Yeah.
I'm not able to type. Like, so we use a communication platform called Slack. And
Mm.
on Slack, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Like, him, so Monday, 9:30. And people are like, what is this about? When I'm really tired, I'm not able to really communicate properly. And so people know going, oh, this just happened. I know
Yeah.
that you had a COVID, you're not being able to travel, your daughter hasn't,
Mm.
you haven't been able to see your family. Like, so it just lays out the foundation on this, gives it context.
Yeah.
So I could better work with Wen Lim or Annie and reach out, hey, I heard this, how about, and then recently we've been, so that is a muscle. So that's just how we are right now. That's just the norm because
Mm.
we've been doing this since March last year. Like it's just the norm
Yeah.
for us now because we were all like over 18 months just had those behaviors going, how are you feeling? And now we've just started a new
Yeah.
program which is random acts of kindness. And so you can
Mm.
surprise once a month anyone in the team however you want. It could be with a poem, it could be someone in our team surprised someone with like Korean fried chicken because he was half Korean. They
That's a
sent
good surprise.
they sent him beer and Korean fried chicken on a Friday last week. And
So
so
good.
all these like random surprises. Someone
Yeah.
cooking else dinner. I mean, I
Yeah.
got a bottle. I got a bottle of wine. It could be a poem, a video. It could be anything.
Mm.
And so, just trying to delight each other in sort of different ways. And so, and you're
Yeah.
right, just that behavior. Like that's what I like about compliance. It's saying this is
Yes.
now a rule, and then
Hmm.
once we just do it, it's practice. We do it every day, once a day.
Yeah.
It just
It's like
becomes.
brushing teeth soon.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be normal to have the conversation, hey, like in Australia, there's a Are You Okay Day, right? And
Hmm.
so that is really
Yeah.
cool. Are you okay? Like, is it,
Yeah.
and then once practicing, actually, I'm not, I'm feeling really stressed. My partner's lost their job or
Yeah.
whatever it is, just to give, it's okay to share. I think
Yes.
that's the big thing I've noticed in Asia that it's scary to share because you just also, there's
Being
this
vulnerable.
being vulnerable, but this fear of, well, I don't know who you're going to tell. Right. And that's the
Yes.
biggest thing. I recently met someone who's working for a tech company in China here, and he was
Mm.
very, very vulnerable with me. He's just sharing, he's in this new role for this huge tech company, and he's like, "Wait, who do you know? I don't want you to share this." Like that was his
Yep.
immediate. I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to share it with anyone. I'm not, but that was, and I see
Mm.
that concern a lot. Even when I first ran programs here, none of the founders want to share their idea when we were trying to build this workshop. And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Am I still my idea?" And I was like, no one is going to be more passionate. You've been thinking about this for 3 years. They're going to steal your idea. That want to go to market on your idea.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
that a lot. That just that fear of sharing, but also,
Mm.
especially in Singapore and Asia, that I don't know who you're connected to, and I'm worried that this information is going to
It's
expose
gonna
me.
bite me. Yeah.
Yeah, but more importantly, there's just a lot of status around, the personal reputation, which is it's a great thing as well because if but sometimes it can be like crippling, just
Yes.
so much about how I've been perceived and seen, and I think that adds a lot of
Yeah.
factor to culturally in Asia in terms of mental health that
Mm.
I can't let people know I'm a single mum. Maybe they're going to think I'm more inefficient or I'm,
Yeah.
not going to be as, I'm vulnerable or needy.
Productive or
Who
yeah.
knows? Like, all of these, thought process
Mm.
through our minds. Or how do I go from an investment banker to now wanting to start a startup? That's crazy. I've been, got an
Yeah. What are
amazing
people gonna
job
think?
with DBS or, UOB or,
Yeah.
and so I think when you're really able to share and go there, you
Mm.
really give, your friends and your family permission to support you on that because that's the next challenge. If you don't share, then nobody knows.
Yeah. It's true.
You feel lonely, and so you
Mm-hmm.
feel even more isolated. And then when someone does find out, going, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah. Could
I
have
could have
been
been
there for you.
there, or just not even just
Yeah.
there with you, or just be with you. And so you miss out this whole
Yeah.
opportunity to really connect. And I think that's the biggest opportunity right now. Like worldwide, we want real, authentic relationship, like connections, to feel
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really exciting with the stuff that Flourish is doing, what we're doing, is like
Yeah.
how do we help that? How do we,
Yes.
provide insights and shed some light into it? This is the global impact.
Mm.
Like
Yep.
we're seeing unprecedented burnout rates. Like we're
Yeah.
seeing 30% of the workforce of tech companies just either so stressed out on stress leave or thinking about resigning or about to leave. And
Mm.
so it's a significant cost
Yeah.
to leaders and companies if they don't do this now. Like
It's
it's
true.
gonna,
Yeah.
your talent could go somewhere else. That's gonna
Yep.
where they're gonna find more purpose and happiness at work. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. I think the really big commonality between Flourish DX and Fingerprint for Success is it's data. Both our platforms collect data that inform management decisions and inform actually personal decisions as well. So it's an organization as a whole. So when you're like talking, I'm like, yeah, I'm nodding. I'm like, yeah, I told we are on the same hymn page as such. So um and I was just going to say any last words in terms of like the future. I think we've talked a bit about the future of mental health and what we really hope to see in Asia. But yeah, any last kind of words or even tips that you can share with our listeners?
my tips would be just be open to being aware, and
Mm.
that's the first part, being okay to see the data, and I think it's just the awareness of your own emotions. Often you just like I've been doing this work for like 15 years now in coaching and human development. I still have family members go, "What do you do?" when you're not when you don't know your emotional, mental, or physical
Yeah.
state, which is where we're just on auto drive right now. Like we just
Mm-hmm.
make it through our paycheck day to day. Let's do this
Yeah.
meeting. Let's just go through the emotions. And I think if you don't do what I just did on the week, like the staycation, just
Yeah.
take back, take stock. So what I
Mm.
do on a day to day is I journal. I journal every day. I
Yep.
started a journal club with my friend Jamie Lee here in Singapore. So she started. I've got it right here in front of me. Actually, it's
Oh,
called
very cool.
the Kind Friend Journal. Do a little bit plug, you, Jamie.
Ah, okay. Oh, this paper bunny. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
called the Kind Friend, and it's called Smile More and Stress Less. And so it's being able to reflect and just take stock of how are you thinking and feeling. And so once a month we get together and we just talked about what happened in that last month, and we talked about what about
Mm,
highlights, lowlights, what are the lessons learned, what would we be
yeah.
doing differently next month, what would if anything could happen, what would have you changed, in that month, and then what could you
Mm.
do? And so, and just through this journal club, we started it actually on the 31st of December last year,
Okay.
and we
Yep.
just wanted to see what are our goals that we set for 2021. And then when I
Yep.
took stock in, I think it was in May, that 8 of my 14 goals that I wanted in 2021, they all happened. And so there is this
Amazing.
really power of writing down, reflecting. So start with the
Mm.
awareness. If you don't know, that's okay. It's okay to start today, start right now. Even on a
Yeah.
post-it note, write down how are you feeling? What would what are the lessons that you're learning? So I think it starts with there, that you're just open to having data, having the
Mm.
awareness, and so that you can take the positive steps to where you want to be. And also
Yep.
being not going from here to here. Like every founder I know wants to be a unicorn. Like, like everyone,
Overnight success.
let's just start with getting to our first $50,000. Let's go with 100,000. Let's double
Yeah.
that to, 250. Let's go to 500. And so it's just being able to build those muscles. Like you don't go to the gym and you try to do, crazy 100 reps of
And you
every.
walk out with a six pack.
You walk out with a six pack. It's just that incremental, like everything just being aware of and doing that incrementally, having
Yeah.
a plan to do it incrementally. I had a
Mm.
friend who struggled to even write any words at all. And
Yeah.
it can be as simple as today, just be grateful, or a gratitude diary, which is be grateful for that you had lunch today. You didn't skip lunch. And so just
Mm.
start with some really simple things. It doesn't have to be an essay, because often we've been
Yeah.
blocked, or we've been, there's such a
Right.
big
Yeah.
muscle. Like I've never had to process what do you mean, what am I thinking, feeling? So once you get there, this is
Yeah.
where you can then take yourself on the journey. So my last note would
Mm.
be a plug, which is it's Mental Health Month. We've actually
Yeah.
curated a free wellbeing 8-week wellbeing program. Anyone can do it. If you go to our website and look at our artificial intelligent programs, it's 2 sessions a week to help you start
Mm.
to build the muscle, prioritize. So we have Coach Mally that's going to ask you questions, going, how do you currently
Yeah.
prioritize mental health? What are the things that you do that make you happy? And so on a weekly
Mm.
basis, I paint with my daughter. She loves painting and creativity, and so I do
Oh.
that together.
Yeah.
So finding out what gives you joy,
Mm-hmm.
that's the same
Yeah.
methodology as what's that Japanese
Oh,
Netflix?
Marie Kondo. No,
Yes,
Ikigai.
yeah, Ikigai, right?
Yeah.
The Marie Kondo, where
Yeah.
to pick up every piece of clothing. Does this give me joy? It's the
Give
same thing
joy. Yeah.
again. So, now kind of, journal, write the 10 or
Mm.
5 or 20 or 100 things, even as a kid, what gave you joy? Is it
Yeah.
skipping? Is it going out with friends? Like writing down a list of things. That is
Yeah.
my last words, is to recommend. Write down a list of things that give you joy, and then find ways or time in your calendar to schedule 15 minutes of swimming
Mm.
or painting, whatever it is. Give that to yourself, because your
Yeah.
well-being is, the workplace well-being, it's your family well-being. Like it starts with you, and I think
Mm.
the more that we give
Yes.
permission ourselves to do that, I think the better we all,
Yeah.
the better we're all gonna, the happier we're gonna be.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I just love that. We've ended on a very personal and kind of like focus on your emotions, but it's still we can have that hand in hand with data. We can have that hand in hand with tech platforms and really addressing it from systemic level, all of that. It's not one or the other. I feel like a lot of the times, we think that, well, people may coin this, fluffy, but it isn't. It's all equally as important and it can coexist. It doesn't need to be one or the other. And I just wanted to highlight that because it's multifaceted. So, your emotional well-being, bring your best self to work because you feel great. But then first you have to prioritize. But then let's look at the data. Let's look at, okay, what is causing people to be stressed out at work? What can we as employers really address? And address over time to reduce that risk that's causing psychological harm? How can we increase motivation? How can we figure out what really motivates our workforce and our people? And all of that can coexist together. It's so I think that's just a really exciting place where I think through this podcast we want to highlight people like yourself, Annie, and companies like Fingerprint, where we can all work together, because addressing such a big issue as mental health, especially where we are, it's not a one solution. It's not a one person solution, right? We all need each other. So I really hope that these conversations keep on going. And it's been a real pleasure having you on today's podcast. So thank you so much. And just wishing you a really great week. But for all our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to the Mentally Healthy Workplaces Asia podcast. So wherever you listen to the podcast, whether it's Apple or, Spotify, you can follow the podcast LinkedIn page as well to stay updated. One of the topics actually, Annie, when we spoke about emotional resilience and just resilience, we're going to have someone coming up talking on that exactly. Flourish DX as well is on LinkedIn, and so is our Fingerprint for Success. And if you like to see short clips on conversations on the podcast, we will be posting that on Flourish DX's LinkedIn, and the video version, if you want to see Annie's and my face, you can see that on YouTube. And connect with me or Annie on LinkedIn if you'd like to continue the conversation. So thank you for tuning in, and wishing you a really safe and happy week. Take care.